stipends, high-end travel accommodations, salaries, etc. They may also take the form of research funding that's not run through the home institution. And they also can include other types of resources that may be provided to researchers in order to influence their research activities, their outputs, and the actual conduct of the research. And those are in-kind resources such as donations of equipment, data sets, lab space, test facilities, access to personnel to perform research, those types of things. And those individuals who may be helping with the research could be in a foreign lab or in their US lab, coming to the US as a visiting scholar or as a student even. So why do sponsors care? This is a summary list of the main concerns that they have. Generally speaking, they're really worried about the distorted decision-making and use of taxpayer funds, those hidden transfers of intellectual property, know-how, and time. The loss of federal research funding is a big one, obviously, of course. Damage to reputations of both institutions and individuals is another critical piece here that we want to keep in mind. But for me, at least, the biggest one is really that loss of public trust. We may never get that back if we lose it. So we really need to do everything we can to reassure the public that the conduct of research is not being swayed by outside influences, foreign or domestic, but that it's really being done with transparency and scientific rigor.
Yeah, and Kelly, if I could interject real quick, that loss of public trust, we're seeing, we've seen this come up in the realm of conflict of interest. We've seen this come up in the realm of reproducibility of research results, and we're seeing it now in foreign influence. And you only need read the newspapers to see where public trust of science, where distrust of science, distrust in research enterprise leads in terms of public opinion toward vaccines and other societal aspects during these very challenging times. So I would just reiterate what Kelly said. You're going to hear the word transparency a lot today, and that is sort of the key to the kingdom with regard to public trust. Thanks, Kelly.
Yep. So just kind of expanding a little bit on that whole idea of the current political environment that we're in, but given that current hyper-partisan political environment, it's really important to note here that foreign influence concerns exist both in the executive and administrative functions of government and in the legislative branches, and that it has high bipartisan support. So this is not a Republican or a Democratic issue. This is a bipartisan issue of concern across the US government. So please don't think that current initiatives, new requirements, enforcement activities, et cetera, are likely to substantively change in this area depending on the results of the upcoming election. Any differences in US government's approach to foreign influence issues and the closely related issues of data security are likely to be limited to proportion, style, and timeline, not to substance. And I think that's really important to note here. So please keep that in mind as we kind of go through some of the changes and impacts that we're seeing. So the chief office in the government that is trying to help make sense of all of this is the Office of Science and Technology Policy in the White House. And they have formed the Joint Committee on Research Environment, which is called JCOR. They have 4 subcommittees working in cooperation with the research community and across the federal funding agencies. And those 4 subcommittees kind of are the 4 different initiatives that the JCOR is working on. They're ensuring rigor and integrity in research, coordinating administrative requirements for federally funded research, strengthening the security of America's science and technology research enterprise, and fostering safe, inclusive, and equitable research environments. And just to make it clear, note that issues related to foreign influence fall within at least 2 of those subcommittees' purview. So there's a lot of attention on this particular topic right now. Also in the list there, you will see the law enforcement, LE, and OIG investigations and enforcement actions. I'll talk a little bit more about those in a second, and some other issues that have come up. I'm going to skip slightly down and talk a little bit about the visa revocations and denials and program changes first. So for those of you that have heard about them, there are three main ones that are impacting research, students, and scholars. Those three are listed there as PP 10014, 52, and 43. There's also been a recent Federal Register notice. Yep.
Excuse me, but I don't think the slides are
Oops,
advanced.
sorry. Gotcha. There we go. Sorry, flipped it on the wrong screen. So the visa revocations, denials, and program changes are critical because they're impacting the ability of foreign researchers to actually come to the United States and how long they can stay. So the presidential proclamations, those three PP orders, generally relate to limiting or blocking, temporarily suspending the entry of foreign visitors to the United States, whether they're here as H-1Bs or as J scholars or F students. The third of those three, the 10043, is related to blocking the entry of visiting scholars from certain military associated institutions, part of the Chinese military civil fusion program. And then that Federal Register notice that's listed is designed to change the entire visa program for J, F, and I visas. I are foreign media, to limit the duration of their stay. So right now, all of those visas have basically an unlimited duration of stay. As long as the person remains in active status as a student or in a formal program, they're allowed to stay in the country. This would change all of that to make it a renewable approval for 2 or 4 years, generally speaking. And the visitor would have to return home after that period or apply for an extension, which there is no guarantee they would be granted. So that's just some of the stuff that's going on in this space. I'm going to go back up, and talk a little bit more about the law enforcement investigations and OIG. And I want to say, first and foremost, that the focus has been on identifying and addressing individual behaviors or actions that violate funding agency policy and institutional policies in a lot of cases. They fall into 3 core areas: failures to disclose. That could be financial conflicts of interest, conflicts of commitment, external employment arrangements, double dipping, so having overlapping research support that is not authorized in the funding, US funding, and shadow laboratories or other parallel research activities. Also diversion of IP, which is anytime, this usually takes the form of a US researcher employed by an institution of higher education who has an outside appointment with a foreign institution, and somehow all of the patents get filed on behalf of and by the foreign institution, regardless of where the IP was actually generated. So that's what we're talking about with diversion of IP. It's also unauthorized access to trade secrets or know-how or source code that a researcher relies on to conduct their research in the lab, which, although may be developed under government funding, has not been published, and there's no intent to publish it, but it's critical to how they perform their research. Those are the types of diversions of IP that we're talking about. And the third, and this really applies mostly to activities within the sponsor agencies themselves, and that's peer review violations. And here we're talking about breaches of confidentiality, people that are sharing unpublished information contained in a proposal. There's also some concern that the same type of thing is happening with manuscripts going to publishers. But it's really those breaches of confidentiality that we rely on as part of the peer review process. Penalties for these types of violations when identified, usually removal from peer review panels, debarment from federal funding for the individuals, revocation of active awards by the sponsor, and then on the employer side, usually termination of employment at the institution. The other thing that they're focusing on are those criminal charges. And what we're seeing here are mostly allegations of fraud. That could be wire fraud, it could be grant fraud. They're calling it a variety of things, but it's usually some type of fraud. And also the theft and diversion of materials or intellectual capital. In limited circumstances, we've also seen export control violations. The penalties in this case are a little bit steeper. There's significant monetary penalties, imprisonment, and if they're a foreign national, potentially deportation and ban from re-entry to the United States.
Kelly, sorry, I think your slides still aren't scrolling through.
No, I'm still talking about the law enforcement and OIG. Yeah. So those are kind of where we're at with some of the broader issues that sponsors are taking to address these concerns. And I know that's a lot to take in on this one slide, but I wanted to kind of just go through them at a fairly high level. So when it comes to foreign resources, sponsors are really becoming more concerned about potential impacts related to undisclosed foreign components. NIH does have a specific definition for foreign component, which is the performance of any significant scientific element or segment of a project outside of the United States, either by the recipient or by a researcher employed by a foreign organization, whether or not grant funds are expended. So while most of our researchers understand about work being performed outside of this United States, needing to be disclosed and in some cases approved, the one that is a little surprising to at least some of them is that definition of what is a significant scientific element can include the production or compilation of data sets. So we've got researchers that are working with large, massive data sets. The source of that data set may be foreign and may need to be disclosed. Also, other materials that are necessary for the conduct of the research, if they're provided by foreign sources, that may also need to be disclosed to the research sponsor. So each sponsor's going to be a little different in that regard, and Stuart's going to talk about that more.
Yeah, hey Kelly, Kelly, just real quick, we're at time check. We're about halfway through our allotted slide.
All right. While I'm switching slides here, I'll also say they're also expanding the definition of research integrity. So no longer is research integrity just about individual actions in the conduct of your research, but it's how those actions also impact the broader research environment. And I think that's an important shift that we're starting to see with the sponsor agencies. So why should researchers care? I've already highlighted these largely. Really, it's about their reputation and personal liability. It's about the security of their research going forward, and then potential recruitment challenges with the visa issues. Or if you're interested later, I can give you some statistics about the recent NIH and NSF investigations related to foreign influence, but I'll skip that for now. And Stuart, this is you.
All right, next slide, please. Let's see. Yeah, sorry, bear with me for a second. I'm juggling multiple screens here. So in fairness, we're trying to cram about 2 to 2.5 hours of content into 30 minutes. So this is, please consider this a high level overview. But for the research administration community, what does this really mean? Well, at the end of the day, we have, this community has an obligation to ensure our faculty understand all these reporting requirements for affiliations, current and pending support, facilities, equipment, and resources in this increasingly regulated environment. And the default assumption when fulfilling these reporting requirements should be that all must be reported, all affiliations, all sources of support. And there are, on an agency by agency basis, variations in terms of the definition of all and what exceptions there are. And we'll come back to harmonization toward the end of the program. Because much of this is coming from the principal investigator and is not easily verifiable, we're taking their word for it. But guess what? That does not relieve us or the signing officials of being responsible for its completeness and accuracy. So we have to take this very seriously, and again, working with our PIs to make sure they understand what these requirements are is vital. and undisclosed sources of support, and undisclosed ties to foreign entities imperil trust in research. So very quickly, Kelvin Drugemeyer is the director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy in the White House. And he gave a presentation to the Federal Administration Partnership back in June. And he highlighted principled international collaborations and foreign contributions, which he said, rightly so, that are critical to our success. Not only our American research success, but our global research success. And the integrity of our research enterprise rests upon core principles and values, including transparency, honesty, accountability, objectivity, respect, freedom of inquiry, reciprocity, and merit-based competition. And so some of the things, and Kelly hit on some of these already, what we would consider unprincipled international collaborations are those in which there's undisclosed foreign employment, undisclosed research support, undisclosed compensation, undisclosed research obligations to foreign institutions, undisclosed significant financial interest, and egregious violations of peer review confidentiality. So if you remember a couple of words from this presentation, undisclosed is bad, transparent is good. Next slide, please. So just very quickly, the areas federal scrutiny we've already hit on: affiliations, current and pending support, progress and technical reports, and in particular reporting changes in those areas. And then I'll get to the other three items later in the presentation. Next slide, please. So let's talk about NIH. So NIH has published a website titled Protecting U.S. Biomedical Intellectual Innovation, and they've put out some really good information. I want to take the time to read this verbatim. NIH and the biomedical research enterprise have a long history of international collaborations with rules of engagement that allow science to advance while also protecting intellectual capital and proprietary information of the participating countries. These rules of engagement also are designed to limit bias in the design, conduct, and reporting of NIH-supported research. It is critical for NIH-supported institutions and their researchers to be wholly transparent about financial support from and affiliations with international institutions. Such transparency ensures that NIH's funding decisions are fair and appropriate, and that U.S. institutions and the American public benefit from their investment in biomedical research. Next slide, please. So this is a really, really valuable table that they've published on their website. And essentially what they've done is taken faculty activities in the far left-hand column and then explained where they need to be reported to and how they need to be reported to NIH, such as report in the biosketch of the company is the application, seek prior approval for a new foreign component or previously undisclosed component in the RPPR, report as other support, report as in the just in time for the new application, or report as other support in the RPPR, and review for potential FCOI. The types of activities are pretty extensive and comprehensive. And by the way, if you see, we'll share the slides, and then the slides are embedded links. So if you see blue text, that should be a functional link that will take you directly to this page. Next slide, please. All right, so let's start looking at agency specifics. What must be reported? So for NIH and the biosketch, all positions and affiliations, including volunteer positions relevant to the application. Relevant paid and unpaid appointments at foreign institutions, even if labeled as guest, adjunct, or honorary, and changes in those must be reported on the RPPR. One thing I would emphasize, both NSF and NIH have come out and said, we've always asked for this. And we're not changing the rules, we're just re-emphasizing the fact that we've always asked for this. And whether you agree with that or not, these are substantially the same requirements we've faced over the years, but their approach to what defines a complete disclosure in terms of current and pending support, affiliations, et cetera, has changed dramatically in the wake of foreign influence. Next slide, please.
Oh, just before I do that, Stuart, let me just reiterate that this includes positions that they work in the summer when they are off
Yes.
contract at the
Yeah.
university. They
Yes.
cannot exclude those.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kelly. All right, other support, report income, salary, consulting fees, and honoraria, and support of an individual's research endeavors. If you're in a foreign talent recruitment program, you got to disclose that. All resources and other support, both domestic and foreign, for ongoing research projects, including those conducted at a different institution. Postdoc students and visiting scholars supported by a foreign government or institution, and any changes to other support must be reported on the RPPR. Next slide, please. I can do this in 6 minutes. Kelly's already covered foreign components. What I would add to it is that examples include a collaboration that leads to co-authorship, use of facilities or instrumentation at a foreign site, or receipt of foreign support or resources from a foreign entity. All those are examples of what might comprise a foreign component. Next slide, please. NSF has pretty much gotten this down to a science. Their FAQs are amazing when it comes to current and pending support. So I'll read through this very quickly. Current and pending support includes all resources made available to an individual in support of and or related to all of his or her research efforts, regardless of whether or not they have monetary value. Current and pending support also includes in-kind contributions, and this is a big area of emphasis for the feds. In-kind contributions not intended for use of the project being proposed also must be reported, although we'll get into that a little bit. Current and pending support information must be provided for this project, for ongoing projects, and for any proposals currently under consideration from whatever source, irrespective of whether such support is provided through the proposing organization or is provided directly to the individual. Next slide, please. All right, so what must be reported? The research funding the investigator gets personally or through another professional appointment. Material data provided by a third party for use in the investigator's research. Access to postdoc students and technicians donated by a third party for use in the investigator's research. Support the investigator receives from an external source to mentor a research postdoc conducting investigator's research. Activities that happen outside the appointment, Kelly mentioned that earlier, and investigator's lab space in a foreign country. Let's see, I had a couple points I'm going to make, but I'm running out of time. So next slide, please. So what doesn't need to be reported? Outside consulting, as long as it's not research. Startup packages from our institution, but anything that would constitute a startup package from another institution does need to be reported. Mentoring done at the proposing institution within the regular appointment. Gifts, unless they require a commitment of time, and in-kind contributions that are not project related and do not incur a time commitment. One of the most important things that comes out of all the guidance that NSF provides for other support is that if there's a time commitment associated with an in-kind contribution and it's related to your research program, you got to report it. Next slide, please, Kelly. All right, so two quick things here. NSF has added questions to their progress report. You must report changes in other support since the last reporting period. They've also added a question regarding the percentage of the award budget spent in the foreign country, as well as a question about the change in performance site. The next item is we submit the proposal, we get funded, and whoops, we discovered because maybe we changed our disclosure requirements that there are some forms of current support and in-kind contributions that we didn't catch the first time and we need to disclose to NSF. The good news is NSF has a policy that addresses this, and they have a procedure that addresses how we submit this information. This is a good thing, and it allows us to fill in discoveries that we make in which there's been essentially an honest failure to report such information. Next slide, please, Kelly. So there, and again, these are links. As of October 5th, you have to use an approved format for biosketches and current and pending support. Science CV and NSS fillable PDF are it. If you try to make your own form to mimic these will be rejected. Next slide, please. All right, so now we're moving on to DoD very quickly. So DoD does not want us to purchase or otherwise use telecommunications technology in our at the university, in our research programs and otherwise. This technology, this prohibited technology, comes from a number of Chinese companies and their subsidiaries. This was rolled out last year, and then Part B became effective August 13th, 2020, and it's gone viral. It's appeared in uniform guidance, in FAR clauses, and in our institutional SAM registration, which we're addressing just this week. So we are asserting that we do not use any of these covered telecommunications equipment or services in any substantial, as a substantial or essential component of any system or as critical technology as part of any system. Next slide, please.
As I'm switching slides, there'll be an email to all faculty and staff probably early next week on that topic.
All right, Department of Energy, they're a lot of fun. They want to approve for certain programs the participation of all foreign nationals, even if it's fundamental research. So that exception is gone. Even green card holders need to go through this process. This is an example where we, UVA, have had to stand up a new internal process. Thank you, Kelly, to handle this. Next slide, please. DARPA has come up with a foreign component certification, program-specific certification by PIs regarding performance of any significant scientific element or segment of a project outside the United States, either by the university or by a researcher employed by a foreign organization, whether or not grant funds are expended. We have had to stand up a new internal process for the PIs to certify this. Thank you, Kelly. And then foreign government talent recruitment certification. Project personnel must certify whether they participate in a foreign government talent recruitment program. We have had to stand up a new internal process to certify this. Thank you, Kelly. Next slide, please.
All right, this is just a quick save the date for you. Kate asked in the chat whether or not this info is being provided to faculty, and yes, we are certainly trying to get the word out to faculty about all of this. And this will be one of the attempts to address that. So we're doing a workshop. The target audience is faculty, but we'll be inviting a lot of other people, grad students, professional research staff, all of you, to attend this workshop. And it's Michael Lauer from NIH and Rebecca Spike-Kaiser. Again, expect an email invitation with a registration link coming soon. That webinar will be via Global Town Hall moderated by Steve Mull, talk about global research. So that'll be their opportunity to ask UVA specific questions as well.
All right, and the last page is resources. We're 2 minutes over, but very quickly. Our hope, Kelly alluded to this earlier, is that OSTP will harmonize. One of the headlines on my slides was nature abhors a vacuum. So right now you've got individual agencies, sometimes at the program level, issuing new requirements to address foreign influence. It's a mess. And we're hopeful that there will be harmonization regarding affiliations, current and pending support, one ring to rule them all. That can't come soon enough. So Kelly, did you have anything else you want to add?
Nope, just please, if you have questions about foreign influence, you can send them to this. Foreign Influence at virginia.edu. That's Dave Hudson, Rob Marriage, Cheryl Wagner, and I at the moment, although we're certainly consulting others as needed to answer those questions that come in. You're welcome to share that with faculty as well. It's our general kind of intake for questions or concerns. So.
All right, so thanks for joining us on the Foreign Influence Rocket Sled ride. And now we're going to go to the FST update and Workday grants demonstration.
Thank you, Stuart, and thank you, Kelly. So now we are going to talk about how the FST project is coming along and participation in the FST. About 11 of us participating in making sure that the grants module in Workday is set up correctly, benefiting us, the research administration community. And we have help from the project leads. Also, our revenue lead for the program for the grants module is Lisa Schuler, who has been extremely helpful and is always standing by us. She is going to talk a little bit about, the timeline, where we are at with the project, and then she will be handing it off to me to do a real demo of the Workday Grants module. Now, it is going to be based on an alma mater university tenant. We still don't have UVA tenant. And, but it'll be interesting for some of you to see how easy the system is to use and how we can navigate from screen to screen, from tab to tab. And I also need to mention that we have the support of an entire change management team from the FST project. Angela Knobloch and Brandy are actually supporting us with our communications, working with our OSP info team, and also and me, and they are going to help us setting up the training programs, and most likely we will be delivering the trainings, grant-related Workday training. So now I want to hand it off. I want to share my screen for Lisa, and Lisa will be talking about the FST updates.
Yes, thank you very much,
Can
Irma.
everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can. So thanks for this opportunity to give you a little bit of an update on what's happening in the FST world with the grants work stream. What we're doing currently is we have, as Irma said, we have a team of about 11 that we've been engaging with, and we've also done some show and tell sessions with some of the pre-award folks as well. So where we're at currently is we're building a UVA tenant. So in current state, we are in what they're calling C1 tenant build. So we are in the midst of bringing up a Workday UVA tenant. And so we will be continuing to work on that until the end of October. Hopefully the 1st of November, the tenant will be turned over from our consulting partners, Deloitte, to the UVA team that we can partner together to start getting into the tenant. This slide shows a little, shows the timeline and gives you a little sneak peek of things to look forward to in the future. So as you can see, September and October, we were in that tenant build as we continue to do that. Starting the middle of November, we will be doing what we're calling customer confirmation and or playback sessions. So we'll be doing some demos and show and tell of the system as in our UVA tenant. So you'll be able to see real information based on UVA's data and based on UVA's chart of accounts in that. Along with that, you can see that we'll continue on until August of 2021, where we'll be looking at configurations. So we'll be pulling data out of Oracle to be able to put into Workday. So that's like your sponsors and your awards and grants, as well as we'll be looking at all of the integrations. There is over 139 integrations that happens here at the institution currently with Oracle. And we're remediating all of those as well. And then we're really excited about the reporting build. As you can see, we're starting to look at reporting early on, which we've heard loud and clear from our stakeholders that reporting is a very important item, and we need to make sure that we have our stakeholders the information that they need at Go Live. So we've heard loud and clear that reporting is a priority in this project. Can you go to the next screen? So in Workday, an award will have what is called an award life cycle. So in a grant, we'll have an award life cycle that consists of proposal. Proposal is grayed out in this slide because that proposal activity in Workday is currently out of scope. We start with the award, and so then we'll go into collection and cost, invoicing and letter of credit, and then we'll go in for the cash application, and then we'll go into the reporting aspect. And I think this is something that's probably near and dear to everyone on this call's heart as you do some of your technical reports, your invention reports, inventory reports. And there's a way in Workday, it's called the award task, that will allow you to be able to see those kind of reports that will be coming due for your grant. So excited about that. I think that is a big step forward for us. And then also there, we will have our award closeout. Next slide. So this is a very busy slide. So as you can see, grants is in the middle. And so grants touch everything. You can see that student finance is out of scope. It's grayed out. So in the current state, we're bringing up the finance module with Workday, but right now students is still out of scope. You can see that the HCM core is blue on this slide, and we've already implemented HCM. You can also see that all of the other areas, customer accounts, financial accounting, procurement, suppliers and accounts, and then banking and settlement is folks that we're going to need to partner with in this cross-functional area as we move through all of these different modules in Workday. Any questions so far? All right, so we're going to turn our focus now to the FDM. So what is an FDM? So the FDM in Workday, it's called the Workday Foundation Data Model. The data model is used for finances that establishes the foundation for all of the Workday transaction processing and reporting. So in current state, we think of our chart of accounts, our potatoes, our GL strings in our current state. But as we move to that future state, we're going to think of it as the FDM, the foundation data model. So within that foundation data model, we have what's called work tags. And so the work tags that we have, there's organizational work tags as well as accounting work tags. So let's start with our operational work tags. So you'll have company, cost center, fund, project, program, gift. There's the grant. We have region, location, assignee, designated, function, activity, and then balancing unit. And then the next slide, I'll go into a little more details about what those represent. But then there comes the accounting work tags. And so those are like our revenue categories. Probably in today's terms, you could think of it as being object code. Spend categories. Today, you can think of it as being expenditure types. And then the expenditure items, which we currently use in Chrome River. The FDM is designed to answer a few questions. So what are those questions? Who is responsible for the transaction? How is, can you go back one slide? Yeah, there you go. How is the transaction funded? What's the nature of the transaction? And why are we performing the transactions? So in our FDM, we're trying to answer these 4 questions. Now we can move to the next slide. Next slide.
So Lisa, do you want to talk about this or you want to continue?
So I just want to at a high level talk about, so these are going to be the data elements on the FDM. These slides I think will be available to you so that you can get familiar and read through what they mean. The ones that I just want to call out is, of course, the grant one that you can see right there. And the naming convention that we'll be using for a grant will be 8 digits, and it will start with a GR. So you can advance to the next slide now, Irmela. And then this is just gives you an illustration to see how will that that work tag look. A driver work tag. What does it mean? So you can see that GR that we just talked about in the previous slide, that grant work tag will be a driver work tag, and that will show the how is that pot of money funded. And you can see that the questions that we're trying to answer there is what type of fund, what specific funding source is associated with that grant. And then you can see that there'll be other work tags, and you can see that company, cost center, balancing unit, and assignee talks again back to that who. And then we just talked about the grant, gift, and designated talks about how it is funding. And then you can see the function, program, project, activity talks about the what. So what's the purpose? What's the mission? What's the activities? And so now I am going to turn it over to Irmela, who's going to talk about some of the terminology and do a little crosswalk between some terms that we use today and talk about what we'll use in the future state, and then also provide you guys with a demo.
So Lisa, in plain English, a driver work tag will be used for grants. When you enter a grant number GR12345, it is going to bring in some related work tags like the cost center, company, fund. We don't know whether it's going to bring in the function also, but that's the concept. So driver work tag means it is going to bring along with it the related work tag, so you don't have to key in the data. So that said, these are some terms that we are very familiar with, but some of the terms mean the same in Workday as in Oracle, but some are little changed. So I'm going to show you this quick cheat sheet that we have created that maps Workday terms to Oracle terms. So as Lisa explained, work tag and FDM are nothing but chart of accounts, are Pateo. Fund in Workday is the award purpose code. Remember, we use the funding source. This is 20-2040 is a federal funding source. Nakubo function code is the project expenditure function code. Company is the entity. Cost center is the organization in Oracle. Spend category is expenditure type. Spend restriction is transaction control. Object class is used for budgeting and calculation of F&A, and award is the same, sponsor award. But award in Workday will be starting with AWD, and then I think it's 6-digit numbers. Sponsored award in Oracle starts with a G, and then it follows with an alpha denoting the sponsor. So GB12345 is typically an NIH grant. Grant, however, is project in today's world. So Oracle project will be known as grants in Workday. And then, it goes on and on. We have given you all the links. We do have a kind of a document library. You can go there and see all these mapping, Oracle terms versus Workday terms. I want to start the demo because I think we are running out of time. So this is, you must be familiar with this screen. This is a typical Workday screen. When you log in, you get this similar look of your HR payroll screen. So I pulled up the award AWD 000514. And again, this is really not one of our awards. This is just a test tenant, and we created awards from our imagination. So this is the overview of an award. Now, a lot of you will not see these screens unless it belongs to your cost center and you have access to this information. However, you will still be seeing all the data fields, all the values through your reports, UBI reports. So typically an award will look like this with so many different tabs. So the first tab is the sponsor, and this is where we are defining. So our sponsor is Georgetown University, but the prime is NIH. So we just created this sponsor and the payment terms, and we said, oh, so Georgetown University is a letter of credit sponsor. Then I'm going to go into the award lines. So award lines are created for every grant. So imagine an award line is like an installment line, which is used to fund the projects. So imagine in Oracle, we are creating a different installment line for funding each and every project. Same concept, but they're called award lines. So you can see over here, we have, okay, let me just go to the award line summary first. So we are testing with 4 different projects in Workday World. We call them grants. So all these grants are cost reimbursable and they're active, and we have already allocated funding to the 4 grants. Now in Workday, you can actually assign a billing schedule on a grant by grant basis. So this is one view of the summary. We have another view of award lines. That is actually giving you the IDC, the FNA rates on each grant, and also, you know, what is the status. Award life cycle status is the award / grant status. So what is the status of these grants? Then I'm going to go to plan. This is where we set up the budget. Unfortunately, on this award, I didn't have a budget, so I pulled up another award where we do have a budget set up. So this plan tab is used to set up the budgets for the awards. And this is how your plan lines are going to appear. Then we are going to quickly walk through. I'm back at the original award. So remember, Lisa was saying that if you have any reporting or any other deliverables that you want to track through the system for their due dates and, you know, whether they have been submitted or not. So this is a very cool feature that we get from Workday. This is where we set up, we create tasks for progress report, financial report, invention report. And we can actually set up the reporting start date and end date, and when is it due by, and you know, who completed it and who is assigned to this task. So this is something that we have in Oracle through installment lines and reporting tab, but it's not very user friendly. Post Award is the only group that's using that feature. It is pretty convoluted, but somehow, you know, we are managing to track our deliverables, our annual reports and final reports, cost sharing certifications that are due through Oracle. But this is very neat, and this is available now for everybody, for the PIs, for you, the grant people, and for us. Then we are going to go to the billing and receivables. Again, this actually tells us how the billing schedule is set up. And then we have another tab for subawards. I don't have any subawards for this particular award, but this is where, you know, we just scroll from tab to tab to go to the right one. Then we have additional reports. Over here, we are going to add, you know, any other reporting and assign a role to the reports. So this is the overall look of an award. And, you know, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. We have probably about 2 minutes. But this is just a very quick show and tell. We are going to have many more lengthy sessions on our discussions about Workday Grants module, and we will have a lot more communication coming out from the change management team within FST. So any questions?
So Irmela, one quick question. This is Neil. What's the impact on award setup? Is this a simpler process or more complicated than what we're doing now? Because I know there are lots of issues now that pre-award just scratches their heads over something.
So it's going to be a much simpler process, Neil. in Oracle, we have to, when we are setting up an award, we do have the option to use a template. So we will also have the option to copy a template over in Workday. But in Workday, as you can see, we just move from tab to tab, and it was very easy for us to create. And imagine us post-award folks, we are generally not setting up awards, but when we had our training and walking through the tenant, it took us probably about 25 to 30 minutes to set up an award with different award lines, with multiple projects, with cost sharing, and creating an FNA rate agreement. It is really easy to use. So any other questions?
Colonel, we did have one question come in over chat. Who is responsible
Oh.
for keeping the point of contacts up to date?
So point of contacts means in relation to what? Research administrators?
I don't know.
I know.
For reporting.
Okay, so we do have our own listserv of all the research administrators, and generally, we get reporting requests from this group. And so you will be communicating with us, with our info team about reporting, or bring it up to OSP all email box, and we will make sure that we answer your question, or forward it to somebody who could answer your question.
Hi, Irma. This is Colleen Speakman. I had asked that question, and it's relating to how in Oracle we can't really utilize the key members tab, but with Workday it sounds like we're able to use that. And if someone were to leave and they're listed as responsible for submitting a report, does the system notify us that they have left, or will it get just left somewhere and not caught, and then the report would be missed? Or did I misunderstand that?
No. That's a great question. So we haven't set up the roles and responsibilities and security yet, but we will be looking into it, because some roles will be based on security, the responsibility. So we will be addressing it soon, and we will be able to give you a better answer than today. And that's a legitimate question, and I'm sure Lisa's taking notes.
I have your user ID. We'll get back to you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Great presentation. All right, so as many of you know, OSP has been working with Microsoft and others to provide an app to our faculty to track lost progress expenses because of the pandemic. And we're now able to roll this out to research administrators and capture OTPS, non-labor charges, as part of this effort. So Vonda's going to talk. Vonda and her team have been instrumental in this. And Vonda, the floor is yours.
Hey, everybody. Forgive my voice. I'm fighting allergies or sinuses. It's not COVID, I assure you. But either way, this can be a little annoying. So just forgive that part while I go through the slides. So hold on one second. I'm going to start sharing my screen. And can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So as Stuart has stated, we've got 20 minutes, so I'm gonna go pretty quickly through these slides. We'll make everything available to everyone. But we've got a demo for you as well, so I want to make sure that my folks have time to do that. I want to start with a thank you, though, because there's been a lot of partnering on this app with us. There's been a lot of testing, and for that, we want to thank all of you that have been involved so far. It was quite the undertaking. The background, as you can tell, the feds offered up some relief, so we've got to track the differentials and the percentages that projected and estimated losses that we're going to have around COVID. The memos are here for your convenience. They're also on our COVID webpage. If you have not checked it out, I highly recommend you go there to this page right here and see all of the interesting things that we have to share with you. The other backgrounds, there's some key dates at play here of when things got mandated to close down, when labs started closing down, when they started ramping up. There's also some key dates in terms of when the Fed said their relief would end. There's 2 different dates for that, June 30th in one memo, September in the other. There are some differentials in the regulations of what was supposed to be charged per each time. Again, back to the previous screen, that's going to be really important for you to understand. And our Microsoft licenses expire on 12/31/2020. So there is going to be a hard end date unless things change in ways that we cannot control, which we're getting used to at this point in time with COVID, right? So the app itself was rolled out in 2 phases. The first phase was rolled out to faculty only. It's in a product called Power Apps. This application uses 2 different products for the purpose of gathering data. It uses the Power Apps and it uses the Power BI. We tested with some faculty in Cs, we piloted with Cs, and released it to all the faculty in arts and sciences and school of medicine, as well as engineering. Response is not as high as we would like, but each time folks go out and ask people to do something in the app, the response does increase. Phase 2 now, which we're ready to deploy, involves the research administrators specifically. It is to gather other than personnel services, which is OTPS costs, and research administrators are the ones that would be working with the faculty to gather that information, download the information, identify it from UBI, and upload data into the app itself using the Power BI reporting tool, which we call a wrapper. We tested with several folks across schools. We had lots of licensing issues, so we really appreciate the patience of folks that were testing with us in this app because it has been a little difficult process. The app is designed for use on mobile phones, Android and iOS, or laptops. It is part of our UVA Academic Office 365 environment, which means you will be using your e-services password and Duo 2-factor authentication to get to the application itself. It captures direct cost only with an expenditure item date that's after February 29th of 2020, which means starting with March 1. For things that posted March through September, and that correlates to the previous slide I showed you on the dates that correspond to the OMB memos. So it's important to note that the impact on fringe benefits and F&A costs are not reflected within the app. We are, however, establishing reporting for upper management review only, where we calculate estimates as best we can based on those 2 things, so that if we are asked for an estimated amount of loss, we can provide that data. Federal and non-federal grants are included. And again, licenses expire on 12/31/2020. So we're at a pretty tight timeline. I've included 2 slides for screenshots because as these things go, you never know with technology, right? Especially when everything's virtual. So Sai Ram Vegasana and Debbie Kessler will be doing a demo here shortly after my next slide, if I'm lucky. You'll actually get to see the thing live and what it looks like for real. But for now, this is what the faculty see when they log in with the app. And this is what the research administrators will see when they log in with the wrapper, the Power BI report. It's important to note that we use the access that had been granted in Research UVA to determine access for this app. So if you had an org assigned to you in Research UVA, that same org will be available to you in this COVID tracker. Are there any questions so far before we go to the application demo? Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Sai and Debbie, and they're going to actually give you a real live walkthrough. So Sai, I'm going to stop sharing at this point.
Okay. Thank you, Vonda. And while Sai is getting set up, what we're going to do, we're going to start off. It's recommended that you take the link that will be provided to you all in the an email communication that should be sent out shortly And it's also available in the training documents that are posted on the COVID-19 section of the OSP website. That you take the link and then paste it into a private or incognito window, which is what Sai is doing right now. And paste it in, and then you just hit enter. Okay. And what he's taking you to now, is the production environment. And this is what you as research administrators will see when you first log into the report. But so as not to mess up with any production data, Sai is going to switch over to our test environment, because we're going to actually walk through entering some transactions so you can see how that process will work. So Sai is now in our test environment. He is impersonating a research administrator. So over here on the left are the PIs that this research administrator would see. And say, for example, let's pick Robin Garrod as a PI. So the fourth one from the bottom, okay. The research administrator has gotten the information from Robin, and they reported they've had no impact whatsoever with COVID-19 on their grants. So by no impact, it means there's no impact on their personnel costs or OTPS. So it's an all or nothing option. If there's been no impact, you can go down to the bottom left and select the no button. And what that will do is it will set a flag in the background in the database to indicate that there has been no impact. It'll take about 10 seconds. You'll get this notification that you selected no, and within 10 seconds you will have to, you'll be exited out of the app automatically, which is what that blank screen over there on the right is. To refresh it right now, what you'll have to do is select another tab at the bottom of the Power BI report, and then go back to the COVID app tab. Okay, and Robin is still showing on the list as being a PI for whom reporting is expected. However, we have set up a process whereby the Power BI report will be refreshed automatically every 90 minutes. So within the next 90 minutes, when the Power BI report is refreshed, that PI will show up on the Personnel Reporting Status tab in this chart here that says PIs who had no impact on any grants. Okay, and the PI would also drop off the list of available PIs on that COVID app tab. Okay, now suppose the PI directly below, Sen Zhang, has reported back, yes, he actually had some impact on his personnel costs. So what you would do is select him, scroll down to the bottom and do the Let's Get Started button. And what displays here is some compliance information, which provides links to the different memoranda that addresses all the relief that the feds have provided for the COVID. And if you read through there and then you scroll down to the bottom, you scroll down to the bottom after you've read it and click Proceed to App. You will then see the grants for the PI that you selected that had personnel costs that posted between March and September. So to actually do the reporting of the estimated losses, you would select that arrow right there. And another form will open. There's a field there with the pay period with a drop-down list. So it defaulted in with June, but if you select the drop-down, you can see there's March, April, May, July. You'll have to do reporting for each pay period for each employee listed in the bottom section of the form. So if we were to stick with June, and we've got 2 employees listed here. Suppose Grayson and Sen both had a 25% impact. You would select their, you can put the 25 into the percent impact field. impact reason, there's a drop down. There are 7 different options available, ranging from no impact to all the different types of impact that you could have had. So suppose this one was restricted human subjects research. You would select number 2. And if both Grayson and Sen had 25% impact for the same reason of restricted human subjects, you can select them both. Select submit, and then you will see the refresh occur, and the percentages will display right there over on the right-hand side. Again, once the Power BI report is refreshed every 90 minutes, you will see that 25% reported on the personnel report over there. Okay, so if we go back to the COVID app tab. All right, so let's go back to Sen. Okay, and we want to go back to proceed to app. Suppose he also had some OTPS losses. So we have to go down to the bottom and select the OTPS tab. And there's the one sponsor project. And let's start with March. I'm going to start with March. There we go. Thanks. Okay. You'll see the text there in red. That is instructions, which basically what you need to do is for each fiscal period, you will have to run a UBI report listing all of the expenditures associated with that PTA combination. You will have to categorize the expenditures using one of the categories within the app below, so like travel, trainee, material supplies. And in the training document, there is a crosswalk between the Oracle expenditure types and the COVID app categories for OTPS. You will then, once they are summarized, you will then enter the dollar amounts into the appropriate field. So say for this person, there was $1,000 in travel that was lost because they had purchased tickets for a conference and the conference was canceled. So you put the $1,000 in, and then you would scroll down. And if that was the only thing that had to be reported, you would take your UBI report that's been exported to Excel, and you will have to upload it. Okay, so then once that's there, you go up to the right to the check mark and submit the item. And you should get this message saying, yes, there you go, changes applied successfully. Okay. Now, another possible scenario would be if you suppose for April, he had no losses for OTPS. You still need to go into the form and everything is defaulted to 0. You will have to click the check mark icon to report that there were no losses for the month. Okay. So suppose that was all that you had for that particular PI. What you could do then is, suppose you had another PI that you wanted to go to. Is this right side? My mind is going blank. Just select another PI. And there you go. It defaults back to the landing page once you select a new PI. And one other thing to keep in mind is suppose a PI gives you some information and for like 1 month for personnel, he said, oh, it was 30% loss. But then he went back and thought about it and said, you know, really it was 25%. You are able to go back into the app and change the reported amount. So like for this example here, suppose it was really 30 instead of 25. It was a mistake. The app allows you to go in there and change that amount. So the data will not be locked down in the app until basically 12/31 when the licenses expire and essentially you can't get into the app any longer. So that high level, I don't know if anyone has any questions, but there it is.
So, Vonda, just a couple quick comments. One, I would reiterate that what you're seeing here is the product of really uncounted hours of work by Vonda's team. And so, you know, I'm really appreciative for their efforts. The other thing is, I was talking to Dave Hill, who's senior research dean in the College of Arts and Sciences the other day, and he remarked how easy it was to use the app. So there's no higher compliment when it comes to software, I think. So I just wanted to pass that along.
Thank you, Stuart. That makes us very happy. It's there's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears over this, and we're really happy that we're finally able to get it out to everybody. Sai, if you want to stop sharing, I will start sharing one more time. We're almost out of time. I have one more slide, and then I promise we'll be done. Hold on one second, and I will get there. So I wanted to say there are places to go to get help. We have available resources to assist you with the app. There's training materials. They're all on our COVID-19 webpage, and there are links that are pretty obvious. It'll give you the following information, and you can also send an email. We set up a special listserv just for this application, so that if you get stuck, if you email osp-apphelp@virginia.edu, we are all monitoring that on my team, and someone will get back to you very, very quickly. So if there aren't any further questions, I believe we are at time. So we will stop sharing our screen and turn it over to Rita.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Vonda. So I'd like to close out with Rita's going to give an update on the renovation at Carruthers, just a brief update. And then there's an opportunity. We haven't met in close to a year. And so we want to give the opportunity to introduce new members of our team. And then if there are people who have joined our community since our last meeting, please speak up and raise your hand and introduce yourself. So, and then when Rita's done, I'll have a couple closing comments. Rita, go ahead. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Just chat if you have any issues if I start lagging or going to a blank screen. But hello, everyone. I just wanted to share a few updates about the building renovation. For those of you that may not know, Carruthers across from Barracks Plaza is our main home base. It still remains our home base, even though most of us are working remotely. We started going under a renovation this past spring, and facilities is currently in there. We're still going to remain in our same space, which is in the back area of the first floor, main floor of Carruthers. But it's going through a major renovation from ceiling work to duct work to furniture, everything. And currently facilities is in there now. They should wrap up around mid-November, and that's when the furniture will start being installed. And that'll take some time depending on the delivery of that, but it'll probably be pretty much at the end of fiscal year, or I'm sorry, the end of December 2020, or the beginning of January 2021 when we're actually completed the renovation. And then we'll just see what it looks like. You know, as I mentioned, that still is where home base is. That's where we get our mail. That's where we do our check deposits. A couple of us actually go in every week. But, you know, for the team to be in there, that'll be depending on the COVID situation. So exciting times. With that, we've actually had a lot of changes, you know, as far as staffing. We've had some wonderful additions this past year. And so I purposely left the screen up because I'd love to share those names. And if I call your name, it'd be great to say hello. And if you're able to show your screen to introduce yourself so people can put a face for the name, that would be wonderful. But we've had several people start. I'm going to go through them. Of course, myself, I started this past year as well, not new to the university, but new to OSP. And Julia Emery, you may have seen some communication with her. She's actually not here today. It's her birthday. She's off, but she is our administrative assistant and is pretty much the backbone for all of our communication going in and out. We're lucky to have her. I also want to mention Megan Aravello. She is our grants and contracts administrator that's joined the team. I believe she's on. Megan, do you want to say hi? Unmute. Awesome.
Sorry, hi.
That's okay. Charlene Bell, our senior negotiator.
Hello. I joined in July.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Marguerite Guilford. Awesome. It's mute too, but our grants and contracts administrator. Leora Payne, our grants and contracts assistant. Okay. It's hard to screen, there's multiple. Oh, hi, Leora. It's the first time I've ever had to do this virtually, so I'm enjoying it. Our next one is Mary Beth Spalding as our Senior Research Development Administrator.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Mary Beth. Stephen Cross, our Applications Systems Analyst Programmer. All right, and Debbie Kessler, our Manager of Electronic Research Administration. Awesome. Jojo Patterson, our post-award accountant.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Jojo.
Hey, Jojo.
Carol Pritchett, our post-award accountant.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Carol.
Hi, Carol. I think that's it. And then I wanted just to mention that Ebony Turner is a post-award accountant. She'll be joining later this month. Actually, she's already joined, but she'll be physically on our team towards the end of this month, as well as Drady Cooper, our senior negotiator. So we are definitely have grown over the past year. We've got one position that's still posted, our post-award accounting assistant, and then possibly one more, and then I have Stuart. I believe we're pretty set for a while.
Yeah. Pretty much we have to be. So are there members of our research admin community who have joined us since our last meeting who would like to just briefly introduce themselves? Everyone is shy on Zoom. I can't get used to that.
We'll remember you when next time we're in person. So.
All right. Since no one's going to take the bait, let me do something real quick. I wanted to just pause. First of all, the turnout. I don't know if we cracked 150, but we were at 148 or 149 when I wrapped up my presentation, and that's just awesome. It does point to a future where I think even if we go in person, we'll still provide electronic access to overcome some of the travel obstacles that we encounter in terms of moving around grounds. So really appreciate everyone showing up. I'm just struck by talking to many people recently at UVA and many of them remarking how tired they are and how I think there's some frustrations associated with all the turmoil and of our times and the restrictions that we have to endure because of the pandemic. So I've talked to my own staff about this, and I just want to share a couple thoughts. Every day we show up for work. We as research administrators, we are advancing missions that get us closer to solutions. In the area of health, obviously, we're talking about vaccines and other treatments for the disease. for COVID-19, the societal and economic impacts, and the fallout from those impacts that we'll be dealing with for many years. We have faculty doing work in those areas, reconciling our past, our history with our present, so we can advance to a better future collectively. Advancing human knowledge. Larry Sabato and his team trying to convince us that politics really is a good thing. Yeah, we're not going to get where we need to be as a country and as a society and globally without the research and scholarly endeavors that take place in academia. And we are administratively at the core of that. So, so again, while recognizing that each of us faces challenges every day and is not in control of what's happening, you know, we show up, we collaborate, we problem solve, we try to knock down those administrative barriers for our faculty, and we get closer to the solutions that we need. So that's, again, that's what motivates me. That's how I try to motivate my team, and I hope you see a little bit of motivation for yourself in these thoughts. So with that, I'll wrap up. It is great to virtually see everyone. Again, I sincerely appreciate the turnout, completely fantastic. And we look forward to seeing you at the next RAF in about 3 months. Everybody take care, and thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you.
Thank
Stuart.
you.
Thanks. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you, Stuart. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
You're welcome.